another thrilling episode of Markout Radio. For the next hour, sit back, pull the stick out of your ass, and enjoy. Be warned though, smarks and internet know-it-alls will be offended, annoyed, and generally pissed off at what's about to happen to your ear holes. You've been warned. Now, Markout Radio.
Welcome, you freaking animals. Normally I play that Nitro theme, but you know what? We're doing a special. We're doing a special with my boy Mersh here. And we're going to do World War III from 96. We're sort of in the timeline. We're patching through as we go. And it should be, well, listen, it's going to be interesting. As some of you may or may not know, there is our boy Dusty Rhodes back on commentary for the pay-per-view, as would be the case in WCW at the time. So we are doing World War III, November 24th, 1996, out of the Norfolk Scope, Northford, Virginia. 140,000 pay-per-view buys, 10,314 in attendance. 7,000 actually paid to be there for $118,000 gate. And listen, he's the man, he's the myth, he's a legend. My boy Mersh. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, buddy? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to make this happen for a while because I like broadcasting with you.
And I've been trying to make it happen for a while too, but I'm A, kind of busy nowadays, and also B, kind of just a depressive asshole. So just
nice to see that some things don't change.
yeah, But you know what? Now I'm at least like a depressive asshole that doesn't like seek out all kinds of crazy, indulgences and things like that. So
you're getting older. You don't have energy for that shit no more.
Yeah, no, at least my life has some, stability to it, which is nice. But yeah, now at my weekends, I just lay around and I'm like, oh God. But yeah, I'm really happy to do this because when you said, obviously I know your show and then I love the subject matter and because we're old friends. But then when you told me what we were talking about, I was like, oh yeah, I'm all in, strapped in, baby. Anything WCW related, I'm always all in for.
Oh, it's an absolute fucking train wreck in the best possible way.
Yeah, I mean, I miss it. Like, people look back on it and they'll go like, God, it's so bad. And I'm like, I know, but I miss it. I miss how bad it was.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like AEW is fun to watch, but there's no train wreck aspect to it. Like it's far too polished to be something that we would just watch as a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I'm starting to kind of be done with AEW. In my opinion, it's kind of going the route of becoming bad, but it's almost like when you see a movie, there's like a movie like The Room or a movie like Birdemic, where it's so bad it ironically becomes a work of genius.
Yeah,
and it's like such good, like just that kind of good schlocky stuff. But then there's movies that are just like bad, and then you watch them and you're like, I'm just bored watching this. Whereas with WCW, it's so bad, it's like The Room. It's so bad, it's good. And you go like, wow, this is so terrible. And they threw so much crap at the walls that like they would unironically create some genius sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like I was talking about this with a buddy of mine. I tried to rewatch the Dukes of Hazzard because I remember as a kid being just fucking into that show so hard. And you rewatch it now, holy shit, it's awful. It's objectively awful, but not even in a good way.
I think a lot of old TV is bad. Like, there's a lot of stuff now that you watch and you go, this was great when it was out, but it's not good anymore. Yeah. Not everything holds up. I've been actually I'm going to start my mission of rewatching NYPD Blue soon. I'm going to watch that whole series and see if it holds up.
Huh? There's always goals in life, man. I mean, I will say, back to WCW, is there anything more satisfying than dream calling matches?
He might be, and I actually have that in my notes here too, that he is probably the worst commentator. And this is like something that OSW Review has observed before too, but like he's so bad at it. And if there's two people I can say that were the greatest, like on the mic and the greatest characters and mega stars that just didn't translate to commentary, it was Dusty Rhodes and Randy Savage are the two guys that, I mean, you put them in a room, give them a mic, give them a camera, everything that comes out of them is genius. But as soon as you ask them to call a match with other guys, you're like, oh, this is a disaster. Dusty is so Like he butchers analogies all the time. Like he butchers like phrases that are very common, but he screws them. Like he's just all over the place. I love him. He's the greatest.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm again, as I mentioned when we were talking about this, I still have yet to see a pay window, and I've worked for a couple of wrestling companies now, so I've yet to see a pay window. There is an envelope which is very creepily handed to you quietly underneath the table so the other wrestlers can't see what's happened.
Yeah, I mean that's the old WCW way, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Wibbly wobbly. I always enjoy when Dusty breaks out wibbly wobbly. Somebody getting hit in the noggin. We still use that.
How do you like belly welly?
I like the belly welly, especially when
hit him with the belly welly.
Yeah, especially when there's like a guy like Mike Enos that was he wasn't fat, but he was just chunky enough that he had a belly welly.
Exactly, Mike Enos.
Enos with those.
They really have a star-studded lineup here in '96.
Those leather dusters were fucking tits, man.
They still hold up. It's a timeless look.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I did notice when I was rewatching this that there are, at this point in WCW, they're starting to sort of ascend, and there's a growing number of cougars and ring rats in the first row that the cameraman can focus on.
Oh, buddy. And you know, it's funny, like when you watch WWE or AEW or some of this stuff, like you can always tell when there's a plant. Like they'll have some woman in the audience who's just gorgeous and just is dressed way too nice. And you're like, that's a plant, clearly. But WCW's female fans, those are not plants.
That's Florida special right there.
Those are genuine WCW ring rats.
Oh yeah, you could tell the busted ass, bad tit jobs, the makeup. Holy fuck, the 90s makeup.
Do you remember Sold Out when they did the whatever it was, the NWO girl contest?
Yes. Yeah, the NWO girl. And some busted out biker broad one, didn't she? It
was disgusting. Yeah, dude, it was oh god, I remember watching that segment and laughing so hard.
Because that was the one and only NWO pay-per-view, I think.
I think they did 2 sold outs.
Did they do 2 of them? Oh my god, yeah, it was brutal.
If there's one thing WCW doesn't do well, it's learn their lesson the first time.
That is true. All right, matches for tonight. There was a dark match with La Parka defeating Villano 4. Villano 4, interesting, it's Villano 2 that allegedly killed Bruiser Brody. Villano 4 is his cousin.
Yeah, that's right.
And
man.
what Villano 4 is
the ring, and it was so like that he just murdered a guy in front of everybody and just walked.
Well, that was the thing. Okay, so Villano 4 in the ring did a like a chokehold, and the guy like started spewing blood. So it was like it was done well, like for a gimmicked work, but so many fans thought it was a shoot. So many fans thought it was real, and this guy's spewing blood, which doesn't happen. But like Villano 2 allegedly, like he stabbed him in the fucking shower, like shanked his ass in the shower, like stiffed him out in the ring, and then they get backstage and he just shanks him.
And then he went out and did his match, and then everybody just pretended like he just walked.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the scariest shit in the world. And then people still do Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah.
Like after that, people would still be like, yeah, I'm going out to Puerto Rico this weekend. I want me to win the tag straps. And you're like, what are you doing?
Oh yeah. It's the underbelly. Gotta love it. It's so fucking wrestling. So wrestling. First match of the night is Ultimo Dragon, the champion with 8 of those goddamn fucking title belts, defeating Rey Mysterio for that J Crown Championship, which is what all those belts were called. I didn't even realize it was called that, because in retrospect, I really didn't clue in to that was a championship, all those 8 belts.
Oh yeah. No, and that was a dope gimmick for a while. Like Ultimo Dragon had when he had all the belts, there's so many like old pictures of him with that. Like that was kind of a cool game. It did add to his like, ooh, this guy's an international megastar. Yep. Like add to his mystique for sure. Can I just real quick, can we talk about the horrible low budget Jimmy Hart produced entrance music?
Oh my God. Yes. It gets me banned almost weekly on YouTube.
None of it. Does it really?
Well, playing the American Males, every time I play that song, I get a copyright strike that I have to dispute and go through. Well, you know what that's like, but every time I play the American Males theme song, because it's a going on joke. Now that they're broken up in my timeline, I'm going to be playing a lot of Bobby Roode Glorious.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, between you and me too. By the way, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of an American male's mark.
Yeah.
They were actually a really good tag team. But yeah, the music is so bad, and none of it ever fits the guys that are coming out. Like you can say we want about WWE, Vince has always been historically good at packaging somebody so that the music, the outfit, the hair, the everything. When the dude comes out, you're like, all right, I know what we're going for here. I know what they're trying to do with this guy. Rey Mysterio comes out to this boom, 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 boom. It's the kind of music that you'd have the Giant come out to, It's this very like dun 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 bong. Like it's just this very like intimidating, like, oh shit, there's a big dude coming out. And then little 19-year-old Rey Mysterio comes out all with his baby face fire, like, yay! And you're like, wait, this doesn't fit at all.
They took Vader's entrance and sped it up a little bit. And literally what it sounds like.
Well, that's what it is. That's how cheap they were. They always just take things and go, well, just reuse this, whatever.
Yeah, no one cares. No one notices. It's not like it goes out over the air or anything.
But couldn't they make something like? Couldn't Jimmy Hart like come out like add some maracas to the song or something? I mean, I just don't understand why we have to.
Well, his name's not Hogan. If his name was Hogan or Beefcake, then yeah, he probably would have spent the time doing it.
Beefcake, Zodiac.
Yeah, how many? Oh, so there was the Beefcake, there was Zodiac, there was the biker gimmick,
Disciple.
Disciple. Yes, Disciple. There's the Booty Man, where they got Kim Page to then dress and have her nips constantly out, which again, at that age and at the age I am now, I was a fan of.
I didn't hate Booty Man.
Nope.
I felt like that was probably the most appropriate thing for him.
It suited his personality to a T.
Exactly.
He's just so creepy. Like one of the guys I work for every now and then, he had Beefer up here a couple of years ago to do a tour with him. And Beefer he did the old school wrestling thing. He would just not show up at a town or he'd not show up for an interview or not show up for like something to promote the show.
That's amazing.
Oh God. So the 8 titles. You've got the British Commonwealth Junior Heavyweight Championship out of Michinoku Pro, IWGP's Junior World Heavyweight Championship, NWA's World Junior Heavyweight Championship, NWA's World Welterweight Championship, the UWA World Junior Light Heavyweight Championship, the War International Junior Heavyweight Championship, the WWA World Junior Light Heavyweight Championship, and the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship. It blew my mind that the WWF title was in there. Their old light heavyweight title.
Did he just win that and they deactivated or something?
They want, so WWF, just like today, will have partnerships with New Japan. And while on tour, their light heavyweight champion, which I couldn't find any kind of reference for, lost the belt to I think it was, who was the first guy? The great Sasuke. He lost the belt to him, and then it just became part of the J Crown. They just assembled the J Crown around Great Sasuke.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
It's insane. On paper, it's a great idea. The great Sasuke is so dominant. He deserves to win these 8 titles and carry him around for 8 or 9 months or something like that until Ultimo Dragon wins him.
That's crazy. I always thought he won them all separately or something, or in different matches.
Sometimes, yeah. So like the British Commonwealth, he won separately. Both NWAs he won together. The War and the UWA he won together. The WWA he won alone, and the British Commonwealth he won alone, and then the WWF one he won alone. So some of them were together, some of them not. It just depended which companies were talking to one another at that point. Yeah, you know what wrestling's like. Yeah,
I know. Everything's a work or a shoot or a work shoot, or they're all carnies. They're all screwing each other. It's amazing.
Or they work themselves into a shoot. I mean, Jesus.
Don't work yourself into a shoot, brother.
I knew it was going to get you. So
I use that in life, by the way, and non-wrestling fans do not understand that.
I know. I get the blankest stares ever.
I will say the phrase, yeah, dude, don't work yourself into a shoot. And people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, never mind. I don't feel like explaining it.
You know, the thing is, listen, I've procreated, God help the fucking world, but I have passed on, don't work yourself into a goddamn shoot to my kids. I get my 5-year-old to say no shoot all the time when people get fucked up around her. It's fantastic.
It sounds like a cool thing like that you'd hear like Raylan Givens say in Justified, like right before there's like a draw, you know what I mean? Like, before you lift that gun, don't work yourself into a shoot, boy.
It's surprising that, Ultimo Dragon, I remember Ultimo Dragon as being the guy with the 8 titles for fucking ever. But he only held those titles for 4 months.
Yeah, but he also didn't have like a super long, super famous run. Like that was his only famous run.
Yep.
It's kind of like saying, I only remember Brutus as being the beefcake. You'd be like, well, that makes sense if you didn't watch him in other places. So I mean, yeah, ultimately, that was us being kids and being like, whoa, who's this dude? And then, then he would just kind of pop up once in a while.
Yeah, and then Jushin Lager, of course, won it off of him, and he held on to it for quite a while until I think 97, 98, I think sometime.
Jushin Lager, is that a beer?
Jushin Thunder Lager.
I guarantee that would fucking sell in Japan.
Oh, for sure. Oh, it's super over in Japan.
It's just Jushin Lager, and they'd be like,
sure. You've seen some kind of shit that they drink over there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've tried anything Japanese I've never liked. I've been told to try Japanese whiskey because I like Irish whiskey, and anybody that says that to me, I'm like, okay, but I like Irish whiskey, right? That's like saying, oh, you should try Scotch, and it's like, no, I like Irish whiskey.
You want something with a little bite to it, not smooth.
Yeah, and people just think that because I like whiskey, they're like, you should try Japanese whiskey, and if you like Irish whiskey, and I'm like, are they similar? I don't know. How would you know? Why would you recommend that?
Yep. Okay, so that whole 8 belts started to fall apart in 97 when WWF was successful in their lawsuit to get their belt back. I guess when you don't have possession of it.
There's so many fights over those belts throughout time that I just think is hilarious. Like, I think that the Ric Flair one is the best, where he just left with his...
Oh, yeah.
Give me my deposit pack or I'm leaving. And
he won his 25 grand back for the fucking belt.
I don't blame him. And he was always had money trouble. So that 25 grand was already spent.
Yep.
Knowing Ric Flair's spending habits, he was like, oh yeah, I was going to get a new Cadillac. I know I'm getting that 25 grand back. Like, he was just living hand to mouth.
Well, that's why he started buying up gyms so that he'd always have some sort of income.
Which is a great investment now with COVID.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Luck.
The one time when their refund policy works in their favor.
Now, can I point out one of the great Dusty moments here in this during the commentary here is the I love Dusty. I actually wrote this down word for word. This is one of the greatest exchanges ever, because you have Dusty Rhodes, who's just a completely terrible at commentary. You have Shivani, who's the only one who earns his paycheck there. Even though I don't like Shivani, you can't say he never earned his. Like, no matter how ludicrous the shit was, Shivani was always putting it over like it was the greatest thing in the world. The man got it. And then you have Heenan, who's completely mentally checked out, just doesn't want to be there. He took the paycheck to be close to his kids and have a limited schedule. He's just bored. So there's a point where I believe Ultimo Dragon does a move on Rey Mysterio. And Dusty goes, that'll break a leg. And Heenan goes, no doubt about that. And Dusty goes, no doubt about what? And Heenan goes, that it would break a leg? And Dusty goes, oh, yeah. It's the greatest. It is the great. Like, Dusty doesn't even realize that he's saying half the time. It's just the way he does that. No doubt about that. No doubt about what? That it would break a leg. Literally what you just said.
Fuck's sakes. It's so bad.
It's the greatest.
It is. That's what it boils down to. It's absolutely greatest. There was a full Nelson suplex dragon delivered to Mysterio in this match that gave me an instant headache. I can't imagine it felt great for Mysterio as he basically dropped him on his fucking head.
Yeah, but this was back when Mysterio was still legally almost a child. So I don't know. I'm sure you remember being 19.
Oh, I loved being made of rubber.
Didn't even face him.
The finisher was a power bomb with 2 bounces off the top rope, which is actually pretty fucking cool and got a well-deserved slow-mo replay. One of the down parts of WCW was they always would slow-mo replay the shittiest fucking crap ever. But this time they actually slow-moed something worthy of a slow-mo.
Yeah, it would always be like an X-Pac swinging kick or something. You'd be like, why did you play that again? It wasn't even that cool the first time.
Or something where you saw somebody slip it, slip it in the blade, and they're going to slow-mo replay that.
Yeah, this was great match. I mean, this was like the peak of what made WCW good at that time, which was also sort of, it's weird because it's one of those things where they were lazy and phoning it in, but it paid off that one time where they're like, they were like, yeah, I don't know anything about these Mexicans, these Japanese guys. I don't know, just book them in a match, whatever. Let's make it the opener. Who cares? Give them 10 minutes. And you're like, okay. And it's like that lack of giving a shit about your programming. You stumbled on this brilliance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right. After this, Gene has a locker room promo with DDP after promoting the website. And then live play-by-play available to 8,000 users.
Not the website. Let's be clear here. He promotes WCW on cyberspace.
Yeah. Yep. The funny thing is WCWWrestling.com is a redundant name, almost like DC Comics. WCW is World Championship Wrestling, so it's World Championship Wrestling.com. And while that's just nitpicking, you have control. You can have whatever website name you want. It's the infancy of the internet, and that's what you went with?
Yeah, I mean, I doubt WCW.com was taken yet.
Right. And even if it wasn't, like, Eric's literally a marketing asshole. You couldn't come up with something better than that.
And by the way, Mean Gene does not look super pumped introducing the website. And I'll tell you why, because Mean Gene got a piece of the 900 number back in the day. And because WCW didn't even want to be bothered setting it up. So Mean Gene's actually the guy that was like, you should set up a 900 number. I'll do it for you if I get a piece. So Mean Gene was on the low getting like a massive percentage of the 1-900 WCW number. So like this invention of the internet was not something Gene was too pumped about. No. Like, oh yeah, just go to the website, get all this information free that you used to pay us $4 a minute for.
Oh yeah, he was pissed about it. After this, Chris Jericho with Teddy Long in his corner defeats Nick Patrick with one arm tied behind his back. That was awesome. Nick Patrick used some mascara apparently to darken his goatee. Faggot. Also the sunglasses and the pouty face. Still a solid dad bod on him though.
Yeah, I will say this, but before the match, he had that interview with DDP, and I just wanted to. DDP, was one of, like, he was never going to be like Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin, but the fact that they didn't push him more than they did, and all the time they had him in WCW, not many people can just go out there without a script and just put over a match. And like they put DDP in a lot of bad gimmick crap during this time, but he just always came off. Like I remember being a kid and liking DDP. I just remember he had like a main event charisma. Like he was never going to be Rock, but I think he could have he's obviously doing well for himself. It's not like, oh, poor DDP, but that guy I loved all of his promos, man. Like even when it was like silly and they were fighting over bingo winnings, like he just had a way of putting that shit over, and he just came off like a real, like, tall badass that would kick your ass at a bar.
Yeah. I love how Okerlund is constantly pissed that DDP is one of Eric's neighbors, and he brought it up during this promo.
Yeah, this was also during a time when, because I was watching the Nitros around this. This was when they were courting him, and that was like part of the storyline that they kept hyping. Like, you're Eric Bischoff's neighbor. What's going on with that? And it's like, I don't know. Like, they literally all live in Atlanta. What are you talking about? Like, they all live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah. All right.
Jericho came out to music that also sounded like the opening credits to a very cheaply produced 80s teen rom-com. Like when Jericho's music hit, I thought John Cusack was going to come out.
Jericho's music was truly fantastic. His first music. I did notice like later on in one of the, I can't remember which pay-per-view it was, but they subbed out the Break the Walls Down song in there on the network. And I don't know why, because they hold the copyright to all of his fucking intro songs. So I don't know why you'd sub that in.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, the DMCA era has been a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's brutal. Now, during this, the commentators say that there's a lot of titles in the future for this young man, and it's not that I disagree, but if there's a lot of titles in his future, why is that coming on the heels of kicking the shit out of a skinny, fat referee?
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think Nick Patrick does have a great career ahead of him from here, and I think he's going to win a lot of titles.
As Mersh turns heel on the show. Thank you.
By the way, speaking of great commentating, can I just point out Heenan is the greatest heel in history. He literally says at one point that Nick Patrick should blind Chris Jericho.
I love Heenan's. I think you nailed it at the beginning where he kind of just checked out of a lot of this. But I love it when something happens or Dusty or Tony say something that pisses him off, and then he's back and he's invested again, and he just berates whoever just pissed him off, and just everything they say he buries for like a good 5 minutes.
Well, he's the kid. Well, that's the thing. Like Heenan is living proof that if you're really good at something, you can phone it in and still be better than the other guys at work. And like Heenan's the epitome of that. Like you can tell he's not as good as he once was, but he's still so good. Like he's still just the way, like you said, he'll just occasionally be reinterested in it and just start putting shit over. And you're like, God, I love Heenan. He's so good. And then he just goes back to like whatever the 1996 equivalent of looking at your phone would have been.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. On the heels of this, sorry, go ahead.
Point two, oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just wanted to say this was the point too where I started noticing that Dusty was putting over where the big boys play, and I swear to God, we were on a second match of the pay-per-view, and I already wanted to shoot my television like fucking hell. I was so sick of hearing where the big boys play.
The only thing worse than Dusty saying that with his lisp was the commercials of where the big boys play, where there's that big meaty hand smashing the soap WCW on the table. And they'd play that thing over and over and over again at the start of WCW Saturday Night.
And it is kind of it's kind of a gay catchphrase, right? I mean,
it's totally gay.
Like that's the catchphrase that I would make like for a gay bar.
Yeah. The announce team after this talks about Piper and Hogan's reluctance to sign a contract for a match. Then we go backstage to a nerd answering questions on a website for wrestlers, including a topless Marcus Alexander. Why the fuck isn't Bagwell wearing a shirt backstage at the computers?
When has Bagwell ever wore a shirt?
Well, that's fair.
Come on.
That's
a guy who wouldn't wear a shirt at his own wedding. Just a bow tie.
Do Gigolos ever get married?
I mean, he had that girlfriend that he was talking about in that weird cameo video last year.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Now, was that a woman that was keeping him in the lifestyle to which he's become accustomed?
Maybe. I don't know. I just remember that video. Nightmare. It was so like, hey, everybody, doing great. He looked like he'd fallen down 6 flights of stairs. You're like, what the hell happened to him?
Gigolo's life is a rough life. You got to be a pimp, not the whore.
Yeah, exactly. Be a Teddy, not a Buff Bagwell.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ. After this, the Giant defeats Jeff Jarrett. Giant has stolen and claimed the U.S. title, and I've always loved the NWO entrance through the crowd.
Now, did you get the Ric Flair?
Oh, that's right. He did a promo where he said, "Don't forget about me."
Basically, yeah. Like I'm still here, you guys. I'm still alive. It was probably, I gotta say, the worst Flair promo I'd ever seen.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Really, really bad. And I'm like, dude, he even like going back to the half-assing thing. He's like Heenan. Even when he half-assed it, he was usually great. But this promo was like, ugh.
Yeah, and I mean, he tore up his shoulder and his elbow fucking performing over in Japan, and they basically just beat the title off of him and just gave it to the Giant.
My notes for Jarrett versus Giant start with the announcers spent half this match putting over Hulk Hogan, as they should have, considering it's 1996 Jarrett versus the star of what was the movie that he did? Big Show, the sports movie.
The sports movie.
Knuckleheads or
Oh yeah, that's right. He did that stupid fucking show, didn't he?
It's just 96 Jarrett versus the New Year's Baby. So you know what? I was mad that they just kept putting over Hogan, but as it went on, I was like, no, they should be putting over Hogan right now.
Yeah. I mean, his his sitcom that he's doing on Netflix is, oh my God, it's so bad.
He can't even speak. He has like a Down syndrome tongue from being so big.
Yeah. It's so bad. It's so bad. I will say this. It was actually a very long match for the Giant. And Jarrett made him look like he can actually wrestle.
Jarrett is low-key one of the greatest workers of all time. Like it's a shame that he made so many bad personal decisions and screwed over Vince, and like he made some bad calls throughout the years that limited his career. But Jarrett was one of the best workers of the 90s, like low key.
I think what shot him in the foot a little bit was booking himself as the champion for so long in TNA when it first started. For a while there, it made perfect sense, but after a while, it got a little bit long in the tooth, and I think it kind of ruined that as a concept, right?
Yeah, I didn't like it. The only thing I did love about his TNA run, and it's the greatest gimmick of all time, was when he was doing the MMA gimmick.
Oh yeah,
when he was by Kurt Angle, and he was like going to like the strip mall karate schools and beating little kids. That was like next
that was
level.
gold.
That was like worthy of WWF good.
Yes. Oh yeah, the camera's at this by partially through the match. Anyways, the camera's focused on Sting walking around the rafters as he makes his way down to the crowd into the ring, drops Jarrett, and the ref completely misses everything. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, refs always miss things, but this was next level, Nick Patrick level, not paying attention.
Yeah, I gotta say this I got my hopes up here because this was the moment during the match where I honestly thought, so my memory is blurry of 90s wrestling sometimes, and I honestly thought we were getting the fake Sting moment.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, this is really Sting. And then I had to watch some of the Nitros, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is when they were just booking him like shit.
Oh yeah, they were booking him like garbage. After this, Giant delivers a big choke slam that even the referee took a bump for. Which was objectively good, and the Giants' win here actually made him look legitimate. And after so long of just coming in and squashing people, it was nice to see him actually wrestling.
And he's not bad for a
No.
big dude. Big green, especially for a big dude that what did he do? A couple months at the power plant, basically.
Yep.
Like he's pretty good, man. Pretty spry for a big dude.
Dude, I still, to this day, I'm still blown away by that drop kick he did in the corner the one time. I go back to it all the time.
But I have a feeling that he probably got yelled at a lot for that because it does kill the Giant gimmick.
Yes.
Which it's kind of like that scene in Major League when the one guy hits the fucking the line drive or whatever, he hits a home run and he does the bases and comes back and the coach is like, great job, don't ever fucking do it again. Because it was like that guy his only job in the baseball team was to be a runner. Like he just wanted him hitting.
Oh yeah, Willie Mays.
Willie Mays Hayes.
Yeah.
When he hits that home run, he's like, great job, don't ever fucking do it again. Yeah. And it's like that's how I feel like it was with the Giant. Whenever he did like a high flyer move, they were probably like, stop doing that, you're a Giant. He's supposed to be big and scary and lumbering. Yeah, the Giant wins. I gotta say, Heenan, one of my favorite parts of this pay-per-view is Heenan's putting the match over and then literally forgets the name of the pay-per-view, and he saves it really quick. Like if you weren't listening for it, you might miss it. He's so good. But there's just a moment where he goes, and that was a hell of a match on a great. He's like, and then we're just getting started here at World War III. Like, and he just like there's that moment where you're like, Heenan doesn't even know the name of the pay-per-view. I love him.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
Yes.
After this, Piper comes down to the ring, demands Hogan come down and sign for this match. Instead, Bischoff comes down with DiBiase, Vincent, and the Giant. Piper cuts a promo on him after shooting on Vincent, which I liked. He didn't actually train Vincent.
I trained you how to fight or whatever.
Yeah, but I look back in the history, and I'm trying to find some reference to Piper actually training Vincent, and I guess what happened was when Vincent came to the WWF, he was so green and shitty that Vince asked Piper to train Vincent so that he wouldn't suck when he went to go work with him. Yeah, it was actually a shoot, but I thought, well, he wasn't the guy that trained him. What the fuck happened? But I guess when he broke into WWF, they needed to polish him up because he sucked.
Yeah, I mean, Virgil was always terrible. Yeah, he was never good, but I still don't understand. I think, if I recall correctly, too, was that the story was there was a different black guy they were going to get for NWO because they wanted some black guy street cred. And I'm trying to remember who it was. If it was Charles Wright, maybe, or maybe not Charles Wright because he was making crazy money at the time. No, this was between Godfather and whatever it was when he was like Kamala or whatever, Kamala Harris, and then he was going to be Godfather. And I think that something happened. Maybe it wasn't Charles Wright, but I remember specifically hearing a story from some black wrestler that was like, you know, they reached out to me and they're like, we need a guy for NWO, want to get a black guy in the mix and whatever, and we wanted to have you on. And he apparently the story was that they contacted him, but then Virgil contacted them and was like, I'll do it for half.
Oh,
Done deal. Yeah. And he was so mad. He's
very
like,
nice.
dude, could have made some good money here, and this motherfucker's out here offering half the price.
And you could have had the black guy actually wrestle and not hurt people.
Yeah. Plus, Charles Wright's objectively a cool dude.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's funny. It's when Greenway did those historic wrestling Negroes bits for the show way back in the day. Those still come up every now and then as one of the most viewed things on our YouTube. But I got contacted by Charles Wright's manager about the video, and my first thought was the subject line was Charles Wright's manager, and I went, "Fuck! Here comes the cease and desist or something."
Yeah.
Right? Literally, the email was one sentence: Charles thinks his video is fucking dope, and that was it. That was all it was.
He is literally, he comes off in every media he's ever done, any interview, as the coolest. Like, the whole Godfather thing is the closest gimmick that was ever real to him, because he's just that guy. He runs a titty bar in Vegas. He's like, apparently, like, he loves still taking pictures with fans. He's never crabby with them. He's like, every interview I've ever heard where, like, most guys like him, like, they go like, I could have been champ. This guy held me down, and I could have been more than a mid-carder. But every time they interview Charles Wright, he's like, bro, I made so much money and had so much fun fake wrestling, like dressing up in costumes and fake wrestling. He's like he never seems anything but super grateful, and just has that attitude of like, are you kidding me, man? I got to be a part of history. Like, it was awesome. And it's just, even in the dark side of the ring, like, they have interviews with him, and he's just in his shot starting the interview off with like, he's in the interview just starting off with a shot in his office, and he just seems like such a cool dude. And he got out like one of those dudes now where he's like, he's not all shot to shit and his knees aren't all but, you know what I mean? Like, he's just chilling in a titty bar, saved his money. It's like, well, good guy, good for him, man.
Oh yeah, that's just it. Like, he saved his money, invested it well, got himself into a situation where he can take advantage of the celebrity that's left over, and just goes that way. I mean, I honestly thought that email was going to be a cease and desist, but when he said dope, I just thought, I wrote back an email. I'm like, any chance we could get him on the show maybe? And he's like, nah, he's not going to endorse the fucking, this gimmick that you just did with this historic wrestling Negroes thing by showing up on the show. I was like, fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, you can't blame him for that. That's a shame too, because honestly, he probably would have done it otherwise, because apparently that's the other thing. He's like, he's just very cool about, like, sure, I'll do it, man, whatever. Like, he's just a very laid back dude. I'm like, that's a dude I would want, not to sound like cliche, that's a guy I would want to smoke some weed with. Like, that's a dude I'd want to sit down and be like, want to go smoke real quick? Like, just tell me some old stories and shit.
Out of all those episodes, I think between him and Tiny Lister, those are my two bucket lists, and one of those has been taken away.
Zeus.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's why those videos took off again, is because somebody actually found them when they were searching for Zeus stuff. Oh, those poor bastards. They find my asshole video with Greenway's shitty voice doing horrible things. Oh
God. I do have here that, Piper. This is literally the only notes I have. Piper Hogan segment. Whole thing stunk, but it was super over.
Oh yeah, it went over crazy because Piper, of course, is improvising, as Piper will do. But of course, because Eric can't improv to save his fucking life, it was shooting fish in a barrel. It was just a train wreck.
How hateable is Eric Bischoff even now?
Oh yeah.
Like, I listen to his show, and I like, he's still the same Eric Bischoff that ran WCW. Like, he's still so punchable.
Yep.
And he's, the two biggest wrestling podcasts right now are hosted by two guys, one on each side of the company aisle, both of which are garbage people, Bruce Pritchard and Eric Bischoff. Yeah. And it's just literally the most political answers to everything. And to this day, they still won't tell you any insights, which is why I would always rather watch, like, shoot interviews by, like, RF Video, where it's like, you know, some convicted sex offender interviewing some guy who's high on OxyContin, because that guy's going to at least give me glimmers of truth.
Right. Oh, exactly. I just
guy that has nothing to live for, and he's living out of a motel in Baltimore. That guy's going to be like, oh yeah, no, you don't know that they were all doing coke.
Oh, those two give political answers, and then on the complete flip side of that, you've got Jim Cornette that basically just yells at everybody about everything every time for an hour, or 2 hours, or 3 hours, or whatever the fuck it is on end.
Yeah, and I love Cornette, but he also is the other side of Bischoff, where I don't always believe him because of how angry he is.
Yes.
And how over the top his shit is sometimes. And plus, I know he's full of shit because Cornette will run his mouth, and as soon as people are in person, he's cool. Like, he's an absolute coward. Remember, do you ever see the clip of New Jack walking in and surprising him during a shoot?
Oh, I know. He looks like he was going to piss himself.
And then he's like, oh, hey, what's up, buddy? And he's like, he's just lucky New Jack was in a good mood.
Yeah. The only way that could have been better is if that interview had got him worked into a shoot about New Jack before New Jack walked into the room.
Oh, yeah. That son bitch was doing cocaine. I hated that asshole. Let me tell you something. If he's here right now, I'd tell him to his goddamn face. Hang on, we got to knock at the door. That would have been awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's an absolute mess and a clusterfuck, but in the best possible way.
So during the Piper Hogan segment, also at one point, Dusty, again, with his brilliant commentary. I mean, nobody does observations better than Dusty. He says, and I quote, "You ever pick a fight at the big game? That's what that was right here." What are you talking? Every time he tries to come up with some analogy, it's always something having to do with school, or like you could just tell Dusty's life has been like, I went to high school and I just became a famous wrestler. Like, he doesn't have everything's about hog farming, and everything feels like almost like a fictional part of the South that never existed.
Oh, God.
You ever go to the farmer's market and fight over a bluebell pig? You're like, no, Dusty, can't say I have. I'm from Atlanta.
Jesus Christ. Listen. And the funny thing was, I love listening to Dusty during Harlem Heat matches because he was always a little too into the Harlem Heat. Do you know what I mean?
It was either that he's secretly attracted to black men, or he knows he's racist, so he's trying to overcompensate. That's what I think it's that he was racist. And definitely was like, I'm going to make sure nobody ever says I'm racist on commentary. So it's like anytime Harlem Heat was like, yeah, these two strapping lads, they got big championship futures. These guys are the best. Like, he's just like, we get it, Dusty. You're not racist.
It was awkward hearing him call a Harlem Heat match because he was way too complimentary of Booker and Stevie, but also he was infatuated almost with Sherry, who, don't get me wrong, like once upon a time was hot, but by this point, kind of been rode hard and put away wet. But the way he would talk about her in such glowing terms, you think that she was the second coming of Miss Liz.
I'll say this. You're right. She was past her prime at this point, but I would have fucked Sherry Martel like up 2 days before she died.
Oh, stick
like
always fuckable. Always.
You might fuck her for the story. Anyway, even if she was told about, but like she still held up pretty well. Yeah, she definitely wasn't 80s Sherry. But even in like some shoot interview I saw with her before she died, I was like, damn, man, old Southern mama could still get it. Yeah. I'd still feed Sherry Martel drinks and take her home.
Her and Ivory held up well.
Ivory is hotter
I know.
than she was in the 90s.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Like a couple of years ago, and I was like, she is now hotter than any of her peers, other than maybe Trish Stratus or some of them that are still like gorgeous. But like all of these bimbos that they paraded out that you liked more than Ivory when you were a teenager, she looks better than all of them now. Like that's the hopes you would have when you get married, is that you marry a woman like an Ivory. That's why I always tell people, don't like, just because a chick's drop dead gorgeous, like they got to maintain that forever, and they probably won't. You get a chick who's like a solid 7, you know what I mean? Who will just maintain that forever. And then you'll end up with somebody who's still a 7 in her late 40s. And you're like, see, your boys, now you got fat wives and everything dropped off. All my wife had to do was stay skinny and not drink and smoke too much. It looks like Ivory definitely, she's fucking banging.
And she was and continues to be unapologetically after that dick. She would put some of the guys to shame with the tale that she would pick up at the bar after shows. And she, like, there was a couple of interviews where she came out and she goes, I've got 2 rules. When I pick a guy up at a bar, we get back to the hotel room, light some candles, and get downtown. And I just listened to it going, fucking hell, man. Awesome.
Wonderful woman. What a wonderful woman.
Right?
God.
All of that shit just to put over the Harlem Heat match coming up with my boys, the Amazing French Canadians.
the amazing French Canadians versus one of the most underrated tag teams ever. Harlem Heat's still one of my favorites.
Agreed.
I do love how we boo Canadians like they're these culturally compatible, like Muslim, culturally incompatible Muslim extremists. Like they're just not American, but they're still practically American. But we're boo, and it's like they're literally like you barely need a passport to travel there. What are you freaking out about?
The best part about this match by far is Colonel Robert Parker coming out dressed as a Legionnaire, which is the French, like as in France military, not the Canadian one. But it did really get some good cheap heat for him, so why the fuck not?
It's easy. Just say, oh, that guy's Canadian. Boo! They're our ally, right? Like we're not at war. At least like with Sergeant Slaughter in Iraq, that made sense. You're like, boo. This is like, they're Canada. Like it's just America with legal pot back then. But yes, I did enjoy that. Colonel Robert Parker, probably one of the worst managers in WCW as far as what the gimmick they gave him.
Yes.
But have you ever heard a shoot interview with the guy? He was brilliant.
Oh yeah, no, he was. The funny thing was he was part of the booking committee with Kevin Sullivan before Eric Bischoff came over, and Eric hated him so much that he did everything he could to politic him out of the position of being on the booking committee, and
he gave him this gimmick.
Yeah, like he came up with tons of interesting, funny, weird gimmicks that are totally unlike the characters that he ever played. Like he played like a basically Foghorn from the fucking Looney Tunes.
Foghorn Leghorn, exactly.
Yeah. And that worked for him.
Where he just seems like one of these like kind of weathered, like Southern, like gentleman veterans that like you'd want to have a whiskey with. Like he just, when he talks wrestling, you're like, this guy's brilliant. All I remember him is like, well, get out of here.
He's literally the kind of guy you could sit down, split a bottle of whiskey with, and just download all kinds of cool shit.
Yeah, and it sucks when you see going back and like when somebody like you or like somebody else is like, yeah, I want to do a show or whatever, and I have to go back and like watch these WCW things. It really just reinvigorates my hatred of Eric Bischoff. Like I know he did some good things, and I know he was an integral part of the biggest boom period in wrestling history. You can't take that from him,
right?
Because even just not just the NWO and WCW, but what Vince, because Vince is just a Bad Boy Records. I'm gonna sample that and make a hit record. He's just a thief. So like a lot of the Attitude Era was influenced by NWO. So Vince was just stealing all the good parts of WCW's booking and then making it look and sound better. And that's why they won. But Bischoff's influence is felt all throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. But my God, do I fucking hate him when I see stuff like this all the time. And I'm like, man, there's so many good characters that you didn't let just run loose.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just give them the microphone and let them sink or swim under their own power.
Also, the French Canadians did the Canadian national anthem. And I think the point was that it was supposed to be in French, but I don't think they both spoke French. And I think one of them was speaking gibberish.
Well, okay. So I usually have to explain this to people not from fucking Canada, but there are 3 ways to sing our national anthem: in English, in French, and then in both. So the first line is sung in English, the second line is sung in French, and then the third line, and so on and so forth. It's retarded, but we're supposed to be a double language country, so it's a shitty gimmick, but that's the gimmick. It's a gimmick that's
sound like one of them. It didn't sound like one of them was doing either. It sounded like one of them was just doing the full fifth,
It's like because Jacques Rougeau can't carry a tune in a bucket, whereas Carl Ouellette actually, even to this day, PCO has a quite pleasant singing voice. Like he could actually sing, and he was pretending to just suck.
By the way, good for him, right? Just being an old, still getting a sick run like that.
Fucking A. I mean, first of all, getting rid of the eye patch made him look a million times more scary. And getting a run like that in Ring of Honor was fucking amazing.
it's arguably a better run than he's ever had.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Obviously, he worked for bigger companies. He probably made more money. There's probably other benchmarks he accomplished that are better, but just the the height of what, like, he gets to be world champ, even if it's a small promotion, and be treated like he's over. It's very cool. I was happy for him when I read that. I was like, good for him, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And he earned it. He's in great shape.
Oh yeah, dude, he's in fantastic shape. He's got a good attitude about it. Like, he spent almost his entire career being in a tag team of some shape or form. And so usually
kind of job. Yeah. So
yeah, like normally those are the guys that are going to be like, oh, it could have been something if they hadn't held me back. That's the guy that you usually end up hearing is the guy that gets stuck in a tag team saying shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's good for him, man. And that's worth every penny. You have a guy like that. You have a built-in road agent too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Between him and Al Snow, I enjoy watching those guys actually do something interesting in their later years, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Snow's another one that never got nearly what he deserved.
Yeah, I agree. No, the stipulation for the Heat French Canadians match was that the winner, well, if the Heat win, Sherry gets 5 minutes in the ring with Parker. Now, I don't see how that's sort of a punishment. Wouldn't you want 5 minutes getting tussled with that?
Even getting my ass beat by her, I'd be like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
She's kicking you in the stomach and you're like, oh God, I'm going to jerk off so hard at this later.
Oh, that guy better get me the tape of this because God damn it, that's going to the bank.
Now, it would be better if it was like you get 5 minutes locked in a room with Miss Elizabeth, because that would be worse, because I never found her to be sexy.
No, she was cute. She was like on a pedestal cute.
Yeah, but she's more the type of girl that would just, like, you get locked. It's like, you're going to be locked in a room with Miss Elizabeth as a punishment. She's going to be passive aggressive for an hour. And you're like, God, that sounds terrible. It's just an hour of her going, you said you were going to clean the garage on Thursday, and it's like now Sunday and the garage still isn't clean. And I'm just saying, I know you're busy, but it's like, you did say you were going to do a thing and you're not saying, now you're not doing the thing. And you're like, oh, I should have taken the Sherry ass beating.
Oh, now you know why Luger's in a wheelchair. So was that going too far? I can never tell.
I actually have 2 signed Lex Luger photos.
Well, good news for you. He's coming up in the next segment with Gene Okerlund.
Yes. Lex is my favorite. I got it. Can I just give some love to OSW Review, because I was never a Lex Luger mark until their sort of like retroactive coverage of Lex Luger.
J and V1 did such a good job of talking up Luger. I agree. Go for it. Yeah.
He's over with me now. Like, now when I go back and watch stuff because of what OSW has done, now I'm obsessed with Luger. I'm always like, Luger's the man. And people are like, nah, I never really cared for him. I'm like, I'm telling you, Luger was the man. Ironically the man, but still the man.
Yep. In this segment, neither he nor Gene know what to make of Sting. However,
wait, I'm sorry. I don't even mean it. I had one note left over from the French Canadians match.
Yeah.
At one point, Shivani is put over the pay-per-view. Dusty says some nonsense or whatever. And then Bobby Heenan says some generic heel thing. Shivani takes a very subtle jab by going, yeah, we could write a country song with what he just said. To which Bobby Heenan replies, no, you could. Shivani so much. It was so weird. It was in the middle of nowhere, and like Shivani's just trying to play it off because that's like, yeah, it's like being at a hog farm and you fighting the hogs, but the hogs were fighting back. And Shivani's like, yeah, you can write a country song with what you just said, and Bobby Heenan's like, hey, you could, but just like, I hate you, and it came out of nowhere.
I can't believe I'm sitting here next to this fucking yokel talking about a pig farm.
And then at one point, Heenan also says, "Where's Nick Patrick when you need him?" And Shivani rips off Gorilla Monsoon blatantly, says, "Oh, would you stop it?" Which I wanted to kill for that.
Yes.
And then I just have all these commentator notes. It's the broadcaster in me. I could watch wrestling, but I'm going to make fun of the commentators all the time. Dusty kept using the word filibuster too as some kind of a euphemism for brawl.
Yes.
And I'm almost positive there is no cultural or regional dialect that uses it that way. So I'm fairly certain that Dusty just probably is legitimately insane at this point.
Oh yeah, no, he's right off the rails.
Like, this is a filibuster, and you're like, I'm like, did he mean fisticuffs? Did he mean knuckle duster? did he like? I was really, really confused by that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I had those notes left over, and I just thought it was worth pointing out.
Well, maybe Dusty was just getting all wibbly wobbly with his belly welly. That's all good.
Sorry,
Luger, though, Luger in
Luger's.
his promo, though, is just going to make his titties bounce for a while putting himself over for the main event, which is, of course, the Battle Royal.
Yeah, I bought a Lex Luger autographed photo from a Facebook live stream where he was signing them like live on the camera, and because I kept fucking with the host of the show so much and trolling him so hard, I convinced him that I bought two. So I paid for one, and they sent me two Lex Luger autographed pictures. And what's funny is everybody was fighting over the WWF photos. Like, can I get the Lex Express? Oh, can I get the And I'm like, I need WCW Lex. There's no other Lex I care to know.
Exactly.
CW Lex Luger.
The close second was the Narcissist.
The Narcissist was good. I will say OSW did a good job of putting over the Lex Express with all of the references to, you know, the tires popping and the engine braking and
the animation and everything.
Yeah, and the song. Yes. I love that song, by the way. Lex is he's great.
Love Lex. Dean Malenko as the champion defeats Psychosis for the Cruiserweight title after this. Again, Malenko comes to the ring wearing his kid's vest. I fucking hated that.
Since you're on the again train, most generic shit music ever.
Oh, yeah. Well, the funny thing is Malenko's music was Ray's music while Malenko was injured. So when Ray made his debut, Malenko was out with an injury, and they used... It's awful. Like, it's not even... They didn't try to even speed it up or anything. They just blatantly played Malenko's music for fucking Ray.
It's like being on a road trip with one CD with WCW. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to keep recycling the same CD over and over again. Yes. Like, at least Vince, you know, is a cheap fuck, but at least he hired Jim Johnson and was like, just stay in this room and keep cranking them out. Like, Jim Johnson just sat there all day and made new shit. And at least Jim Johnson changed the tone and the sound of things. So they sounded like even with WCW, they even just got this generic Japanese music. Like every time a Jap comes out, it's like, bong, and like the wooden flute and all that shit. And you're like, God damn, guys.
I mean, the thing is, there's nothing particularly awesome about Warriors music. And yet, when you hear Warriors music, you go apeshit because...
and I hate Warrior. That music's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, dude, the fact that, and honestly, anybody who ever got over in WCW, I don't even care on a main event level, on any level, if you got over at WCW, you deserve a fucking salute, because how anyone got over with this music is beyond me. Like, and I understand, you know, if you're talented, you'll shine through anyway, but it's like, dude, WCW did everything they could to make you not get over, whereas on the flip side, I would think WWF would hands down be a worse company to work for in almost every aspect. Like WWF, it's like being a day trader and being like having a small little hedge fund that you run out of your home office. And you're like, okay, you know, I can make money trading, make a little money, chill. I could be with the kids when they get home from school. This is great. And then you take a gig working at like, you know, Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. It's like it's WWE is great in that one way where it will advance your career and make you a megastar at your career, but you're going to hate every aspect of it. And I would think WWF, you would hate every aspect of working there, but at least when you went to work there, they're like, we're going to get you a fucking theme song. By the way, that ring gear you brought in, throw it out. It's garbage. We're getting this. We're going to have fucking 60 women coming out, sucking your dick while we bring you to the thing. Bobby Heenan's going to be talking about how you're the greatest fucking thing since sliced bread. We're going to have pyro going off. We're going to have fucking helicopters with your name on it. And you're like, whoa. Like, at least, like, you know, so if you got over in WWE like a Ryback, I don't necessarily give you the same level of respect as if you were like a mid-carder in WCW in the 90s and got over. Because it seems like you just got over despite every effort to make you ever get over. Yep. The music, the entrance, the lack of enthusiasm, the commentary team that doesn't even want to be there. Like, the whole thing is a mess.
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing was, you brought up ring gear, and Psychosis comes out in what can only be called an anime shredder ring gear for this fucking this match. It was objectively awful. And his gear was so cumbersome that Dean Malenko, of all people, couldn't get a hold of him properly.
Yeah, and I mean, Dino's the fucking man.
Yeah. I mean, he's boring as the day is long, but wrestling, Jesus Christ, if you fuck up wrestling Dean Malenko, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, no, there's no reason to not have a good match with Dean Malenko. And it just sucks. He never had any charisma. I just saw a shoot interview with him the other day, and he just talks like this. Like he sounds like he sounds and looks like a hungover Nick Nolte. Like in every scenario he does, which would have been cool if they gave that to him as a gimmick, but like they just had him come out like Benoit and be like, I'm going to destroy. Like they should have had Dean Malenko with his raspy voice and his bloodshot eyes just portray like a hungover, like a guy that every time he had a match, like on a pay-per-view the day of, he was just hungover and he went out on a bender, but he would still just go out and just decimate his opponents. That would have been a good gimmick.
Yes. Like, oh yeah, for sure would have.
The functioning alcoholic Dean Malenko.
We got a 3-way match after that. Triple threat for the World Tag Team Championship. The Outsiders defeat the Faces of Fear and the Nasty Boys. I
want to say Dusty likes to tell us what the bottom is. Or what the bottom
yeah.
Like the bottom line, he loves telling us what the bottom line is. And I just wanted to point out during Psychosis and Dean Malenko, he says where the big boys play for about the 100th time. And I just want to say
the littlest guys in the company.
To the two littlest guys in the company, where the big boys play. And in my notes here, it says, I'm glad he's dead. I don't know why I wrote that. I must have been very angry at this point.
So you're rage watching the pay-per-view. I like it.
I literally just he says where the big boys play for the 100th time. I'm glad he's dead. Is what my notes say.
Oh no. Well, if we weren't going to hell before, now we are.
Yeah, Outsiders versus Nasty Boys versus Faces of Fear. And was this a 3-way match? Because I thought I saw guys tagging people from other teams.
They were.
Like this match made no sense to me.
It was supposed to be a triple threat match, which means that you have to tag in a team member from another team. And at one point, Scott Hall tags in Kevin Nash.
And then that was how it ended.
And well, so it sort of ended there by it looked like Hall was going to lay down for Nash, and then everyone sort of rushed into the ring, and as Dusty would put it, a clubbering started.
Yeah, a filibuster.
A filibuster. Now, here's the thing. It's well known that WCW ring is smaller than the WWE rings, and it's smaller than a lot of indie show rings. These are 3 really big fucking guys. I think this ring's a little bit too small to hold all these goddamn bodies.
It was ridiculous. It looked ridiculous. It was booked ridiculously. The entire match, I spent more time just trying to figure out what the rules of this match were than like actually watching them. I'm like, wait, you can tag anybody in? And then I'm like, and then you start getting distracted in your own mind and you're going, but then, by the way, played out exactly as I thought it would. Cause I'm going, but then why don't you just tag your own partner and then just lay down? And of course that happens.
Then it happens.
This is so dumb. Like,
yep.
This is so stupid.
They were setting you up for it, man. Yeah. So the end of this was Nash powerbombs Knobs while Hall keeps everyone out of the ring as for the Outsiders to retain the titles. But like, it was just a messy clusterfuck.
Yeah, I agree. I got to say this too. I always hated the Nasty Boys. They were never over with me. Growing up and hearing stories, you find out they're also terrible people.
Yes.
So that it's not like they don't even kind of redeem themselves in right. Because there are some wrestlers I look back on and I go, well, that guy kind of sucked when I never really was a fan. But like you find out that they're kind of cool in real life, like Charles Wright or like Steve Blackman. It seems like he's kind of a badass and a pretty cool dude. Like there's certain people you read about and you go, that guy's pretty cool. You know what? I'm going to retroactively say he's over with me now. The Nasty Boys have no redeeming qualities except for one thing. You got to admit, probably the best WCW theme out of anybody, but maybe the Four Horsemen. Greatest WCW theme ever. It gets you pumped. They rap in their own fucking theme. You know what I mean? Like everybody else is coming out with generic music. At least they have like a theme.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, well, the one thing I will say is I became a huge Faces of Fear mark, not at the time. I fucking hated them at the time because I was a teenager and an idiot. But watching this stuff back from the beginning, the Nitro stuff, I've become a huge Faces of Fear mark. And the Barbarian was on a tour through town with one of the indie companies, and I got to meet the guy. Barbarian looks legitimately like he could rip your head off and feed you your own dick. Holy fuck, is he the nicest goddamn guy you've ever fucking, like, we're sitting around after the show, everyone's just sort of drinking a beer, and he looks over at me, he's like, oh, you don't have a beer? And I said, oh yeah, I just finished. He goes, oh, fuck, here. And he just pulls one out and just throws it to me, and then we're all just talking about wrestling and just life and whatever the fuck else. Nicest fucking guy, but looks like an absolute goddamn monster.
Well, it's probably why he's nice, because I mean, he's one of the ones, right? Like Haku, that they always say was one of the guys that could just kill you. Like,
Yeah.
not in the ring, but like, you know, every time they talk about the toughest wrestlers in real life, it's always like, you know, Mang. But they always say Barbarian's one of those guys that would have fucking killed you back in the day.
Right.
Like if you had to. And I've come to learn over the years that most of the people that are like can kill you with one hand while sipping a beer with the other, they are usually the nicer guys. They are usually the ones that like, they've crushed enough skulls in their day and they've had enough fights. And usually the guy that can fucking kill you with his bare hands is not out looking for a fight. He's very self-assured in that category. So those guys are like the MMA guys, other than Conor McGregor and a handful of douchebags like War Machine and all these like complete sociopaths, like a lot of the MMA guys, when you meet them, they're just kind of like, hey, whatever, man, it is what it is, right? Hey, I might win next week. Other dude might win next week. Who knows, right? But, you know, it is what it is. And you're like, those guys are the ones that you look out for because you're like, that guy will kill everybody in this room if he's being that chill. So that's probably why he's known to be a guy that's a tough guy. And guys that are tough guys don't generally act like prima donnas. They don't generally lord over people and try to, oh, I'm a fucking pig. Like JBL is one of those guys that I'm sure most of these people could probably beat the shit out of, but he's protected by the company and he bullies everybody. I'm a big old Tex. I'll kick everybody's ass. But like, you know, Barbarian looks like one of those guys who's just mad chill until he finally looks at you and goes, I'm going to go punch JBL in the face. I'll be right back. You know what I mean? It's like one of those guys. So I'm sure he is chill. I never liked Faces of Fear. But I love Kevin Sullivan. I have become in my adult years the biggest Kevin Sullivan mark that ever lived.
And for what reason?
No, just not even a comedy setup. Not even setting up for a punchline. Or I just like that. I've watched a lot of shoot interviews, and he's just this beer drinking Bostonian asshole.
Yeah.
Who seems to, like, when I hear him tell stories, and he just seems like a guy who's telling the truth, and he doesn't seem like a guy that has a single bit of like bad blood or sour grapes. Like, he's another guy that you can tell is like, I'm a small guy. I had a great run. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, he knows he's a small guy. He knows he probably never had any business getting as far as he did in the business, but he's grateful for it. And he's like, nah, it's great. Like, when he tells stories and stuff, he just seems like one of those guys from that era of wrestling that you're like, fuck, I would have liked to have had a beer with Kevin Sullivan. Like, he just seems like a cool dude. He's a very cool guy. And
yeah, I would think he probably toned down, like, because at one point he was out of his goddamn mind. But I think maybe that shoot feud he had with Benoit sort of snapped him back to reality. Like, oh shit, we're fucking tiny and there's huge monsters on our cards, and maybe we shouldn't be trying to fuck each other over on a shoot when the guys that are 6'5" and 6'6" are trying to fuck us all over as it is.
Yeah. That too. And I also think one of the funny things too is like whenever the Benoit stuff gets brought up, you can tell Kevin doesn't want to get too in depth. Like, he doesn't want to bash Benoit because he was also known in a lot of circles for battering the shit out of Nancy.
Oh, look, dude, he beat the piss out of her.
I don't want to victim blame or speak ill of the dead, but I'm just saying that Nancy Benoit, woman, was known as quote a habitual line stepper.
Yes, that's putting it mildly. I like it.
She was one of those that knew it, and
a little bit like Deborah McMichael in that respect. Just constantly push.
And they'd ask him questions like, did you ever see Benoit get like really angry or hit Nancy or anything? And he'd go, look, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, all right? I don't know what happened in their household. And, clearly I don't know the particulars of their relationship. You can just tell it's coming from a guy that's like I've throttled shit out of Nancy before. Like, I've almost killed that bitch before. Like, I feel like there's nobody in the world that understands Chris Benoit more than Kevin Sullivan. And I feel like when people go, yeah, he was a real piece of shit, right? Kevin's like, look, we don't know what happened. And, speak ill of the dead, let's just let it go.
Jesus Christ. 60-man battle royal. There we go.
This is it. Where it's strap in, baby.
Oh, God. The announce team breaks into groups like they did every year to cover this from all angles for the 3 rings. Lee Marshall and Larry Zbyszko team up. I love Lee Marshall's fucking voice. I know as a broadcaster, you've kind of got to tip the hat a little bit to his fucking golden voice.
Is he the Jewy one?
He was the one with the big ass porn stash. Yup.
Yeah, the very Jewy looking one.
Oh, yeah. The golden voice bastard that he was.
Now, there's so many announcers during these main events that they all end up screaming over each other, unless you're Heenan, who just goes like, I'm just going to not talk. But you notice at one point, was Larry Marshall the one that gets knocked out at one point?
Lee Marshall gets blasted. He gets hit by some guy's foot and gets knocked stupid for like a good 5-10 minutes here, leaving Zbyszko to try to cover it up. But of course he couldn't. So they threw to Tenay and Dream to cover it up. Oh, great idea there. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and I want to say, by the way, Larry Zbyszko, one of the worst commentators to ever have a microphone in his hand. Also a terrible human being, as I've come to learn in my investigations, in my investigative reporting. Larry Zbyszko, not a very good guy.
Agreed.
He's just terrible, though. Like, he's a guy that has to be a know-it-all to the point of like spoiling finishes and stuff.
Yep. Like, he toes the line of breaking kayfabe just enough to basically throw his whoever he's working with under the bus.
Yeah, like if he were an actor playing a character in a movie, he would be like, yeah, but there should be a line in the movie where I say what the ending of the movie will be so everybody knows how smart I am. And it's like, do you not understand acting, you schmucko? Like, the whole point of the announcer's not knowing is you're not supposed to know. You're supposed to be like, who knows? It could be anybody tonight. You got the booking sheet. You know it's Hogan, but just say, you're like, oh, who knows? Could be any one of these. It could be a shot, 60 men. Zbyszko's always like, yeah, it's going to be Savage. You're like, you fucking asshole.
This is why, like, when Tony Schiavone doesn't get enough credit from back here keeping shit together, this is where I always remind people, he kept Larry reasonably on point. That's a fucking act of a god.
Yeah, and I look back, like, I know Schiavone still gets heat to this day for being a wormy little asshole and for being Heenan's boss and all that stuff. But I haven't heard anything about the way Schiavone was given opportunities in WCW at any point. Like, at no point have I ever felt like he was given anything he didn't deserve. Like, he was a great commentator. When WCW folded, I remember being a kid and thinking, like, it'd actually be kind of dope if they had Tony Schiavone on SmackDown or Raw, because he, whether you like him or not, he puts it over, man, and he plays dumb when he's supposed to play dumb, and he plays smart when he's supposed to play smart. He sounds like, I've heard I've actually, to his credit, I've heard Schiavone's a better guy now. I've heard he's a couple years of working at Starbucks and working in fast food before there was a wrestling renaissance will humble a man. And I've heard he's a little more humble now, but back then he was a bit of an asshole. But can't take away from the fact he was always, like, if I owned a wrestling company in the 2000s when they folded, Schiavone would have been one of the first guys I hired. That guy's a really good broadcaster.
Now, have you heard of the show Brockmire with Hank Azaria? So Hank Azaria plays a disgraced baseball announcer who's a boozer, who's a womanizer, whole 9 yards, right? And when they were interviewing Hank Azaria, they asked him who was being used as a template for your character. And one of the names he mentioned as one of these boozing, womanizing baseball announcers was Tony fucking Schiavone. Because Tony Schiavone, that's where he was before WCW. That's where he went after WCW. He went back to calling play-by-play for baseball for like AA and AAA affiliates and stuff. So the fact that they use him as a template for a character that's supposed to be just hateful and yet ultimately redeeming is awesome. But here's
because it's him. It is Tony Schiavone.
It is.
Like,
the only downside to Tony Schiavone, like as far as the wrestling announcing goes, is when WCW was taken over WWF, people wanted to see Tony paired with somebody like JR. But now we're seeing that in AEW after JR is well past his prime. And it's just like people wanted to see Sting and Undertaker in a match together. You kind of did want to see it in 2001. But today, it's not holding up to what you dreamed it was going to be.
I wanted to see it up until 2006. It was still a viable option. And then it was like, all right, guys, come on, let's pack it up.
Enough is enough.
And it's, yeah, no, you're right, though. But that's why, like, and the only other thing I will say about Schiavone and why he's redeemed himself in my eyes is because I heard a shoot interview with him before AEW picked him up, before his official redemption arc started or whatever. And he straight up said, like, yeah, I regret the way I treated Bobby Heenan. And I think it was shitty. And I think, at the time there was a lot of factors and whatever. He goes, but he basically straight up said, I regret how I treated him. And, I certainly wish it could have went better. And like, he kind of admitted a little bit of fault in his attitude back then. And, it kind of takes a big man to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, you know what, man, he grew on me, but I always was a Schiavone man. I thought he was one of the best broadcasters in the business.
I know at the time I did too. Looking back at it, I was a huge Schiavone mark.
Because WCW would shovel dog shit out there, and he would just be like, oh my God, look at this, it's the greatest thing ever. And you're like, God, Schiavone is just a company man, dude.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, you're right. He was 100% a company guy. Like Sting, he just, fuck it, I ain't going there.
Yeah, and that was pretty dope, man. So yeah, I like Schiavone. He's definitely grown on me. I will say this though, he did fuck up in this match.
Oh yeah.
He calls the Jobbers Act. I have to point to this. This is probably the stupidest thing he's ever done. He says at one point, and I quote, "The best thing about World War III is even people with bad win-loss records can get a chance. Look at Disco Inferno. He's still in there." Like, he just buries the Jobbers. And then like a couple minutes later, Disco gets eliminated. And he says, and I quote, "Finally, Disco Inferno gets eliminated."
Well, he and Glenn had legit heat backstage because Tony was sort of helping out with the booking committee. And that's where Disco Inferno, where Glenn was sort of helping out as well. And they fucking always disagreed. No matter what the fuck Tony said, Disco disagreed with him.
Disco's retarded. His booking is retarded.
He is retarded. He's functionally retarded even to this day.
Yeah, even now when he's doing his podcast with Conan and saying things like, yeah, you know what, bro? I think these fucking marks are not even pointing out. I think that Luke Harper probably had COVID, and they're all covering it up. No, get that wife on the phone. I want to ask her questions.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how many times people point out to him that legitimately the doctors came out and said un-COVID related lung problems. Like, yeah, what Disco, the fuck?
Disco, calm down. If there's one thing they're trying to do is inflate COVID numbers. Relax, buddy.
Yeah, just
don't worry. If it even smelled like a COVID
just a little
death,
whiff. Just a whiff.
It would have been page news. Fucking COVID just kills beloved wrestler.
Yeah,
relax.
They're looking for that headline. They've got it up here now with one of our sports analysis. He came down with it, so they're punching that shit all over the place. Whatever. Now, I will say the unfortunate side effect of the announced teams being split up the way they were was that everyone's back was to hard cams or everyone's back was to a camera. And I have to ask, how many fucking cows were murdered for Dusty's fucking jacket?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's why he uses all those analogies. It's in memoriam of all the cows.
Holy shit. I mean, Jesus Christ. The whole fucking match starts off with Benoit and Sullivan going after each other and spilling Dusty to the outside.
Dusty looks like a Chick-fil-A billboard.
Jesus Christ. Yes, he does. Jesus. Oh, the fucking the state of the red leather, the fucking rhinestones, the shoulder pads, like, oh my God. Yes. Yeah. He's the poster boy. This is what happens after you eat here too much.
This is the greatest. Yeah, I by the way, I got to say this too. At one point, I don't want to spoil the ending. We get.
We're getting there. The one thing I like this is the point where the Benoit Sullivan feud was arguably either a shoot or a work, depending on who the fuck you ask. But
how close to this pay-per-view do you think they started fucking?
Oh, Nancy and Chris?
Yeah.
Months and months and months before, because when I was doing the shows, it was way back in November of 95 when rumors started circulating about Benoit and Nancy making eyes at each other. She was estranged from Sullivan at this point, but they were making eyes at one another way back then. So here we are, almost a full year later, and the little passive aggressive digs that started in, I want to say, October of 96 were just like, you know, Sullivan would cut a promo and there'd be like a passive aggressive dig about he was in that hole first, essentially. So, I mean, by now Sullivan knows. And that's why, like, honestly, the both of them look like they've been fucking hit by buses.
Yeah, it's it's weird. Like, we watch these pay-per-views and you like, especially like these specific ones where it's like Benoit and Nancy coming out together and you're like, oh, he's gonna murder you.
Can you ask, like, honestly, is there any fucking man on the planet Earth that was in a position where they could effectively control where your wife that's fucking another guy and the guy she's fucking were going to end up, that you wouldn't take advantage of that? Is there any man in the world that wouldn't take advantage of that situation?
No, I mean, Sullivan, it's pretty weird, man. I don't wonder if he's trying to get rid of her.
I would have been doing everything in my fucking power to get them both out of the goddamn company. Everything in my power to get them out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I you know what I always think too, and I always had a theory about that, is I think Sullivan knew that they were leaving anyway.
Yeah.
I think Sullivan knew Chris and all those guys were going to leave anyway. Nobody, very few people are going to just stay in WCW, right? And he's finally gotten to that level where they were looking at him anyway. And I think, honestly, Sullivan probably knew that was going that route anyway. So why not look selfless? Like, it probably took a lot of self-control and foresight to do that. But I'm sure deep down he was like, I just want to fucking bury this prick. But yeah, he probably was like, nah, put the strap on him. Why not? Like, he probably knew he was leaving anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I will say it made for some uncomfortable watching. So as I'm going through it in the show.
Props to Mike Graham for threatening Chris Benoit and basically giving him his out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Obviously, the picture-in-picture gimmick gets overused a lot during this match, but I mean, we might as well talk about the go-home. Eventually, it ends up being Luger, Hall 6, and Nash and the Giant in the ring together. So it's Luger versus the NWO.
So we know at this point it's going to be 6, which I don't want to spoil.
Of course. Jesus. Sean's the fucking shoo-in at this point, right?
Imagine that alternate universe where Kevin Sullivan is so jealous of Benoit. He's like, all right, boys, hear me out on this. What if we put the strap on 6 instead?
Well, I mean,
go over on Benoit clean. What do you say? And everybody's like, yeah, yes.
The whole point of World War III was to basically rip off the Royal Rumble, but to add twice as many wrestlers to the mix, which, whatever, that's fine. There's nothing really wrong with that. But ultimately, the idea here is whoever wins this is going to go on to challenge the champion. So now you've got Luger versus, 4 members of the NWO, 4 members of the NWO. Who's going to come out on top? So everyone in attendance is thinking, well, Luger's got to win, of course. Fucking little swerve there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, they look, they were good. WCW had one strength. It was misdirection. I just think that the problem was that they relied on it so much that eventually it was like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Like, who are they putting over the most? Okay, that's the guy who's probably not going to win.
Luger racking the Giant was actually a pretty good spot. It's one of the few times that he did it clean.
He was, look, man, I know Luger's fun to goof on or whatever, but he was a stud. Like, he was a stud athlete at one point.
Yeah. And I mean, he racked Nash. So Giant, shoves Luger and Nash out of the ring while Luger's racked up Nash. He legit racked up 2 pretty big fucking dudes.
Yeah, he's look, Luger was no joke in his prime, dude. That was a big boy. Remember, he slammed Yokozuna And look, I know Yokozuna obviously helped, and it wasn't
but
like
still, it's still deadlifting that.
That's a big boy, and he did it. So, I mean, yeah, Luger's always, he always had the fucking great look, and he always had a incredible fucking strength and physique. He just, he was Lex.
There's really no other better way to put that, to be honest with you.
Lex.
It was Lex. Now, Giant winning this should mean, of course, that the Giant should go on to challenge for the title, except that, of course, he wouldn't. Giant would never get a shot at the title because of this, ever.
Didn't he win the title, and then they gave it back, or what? Remember that one where
there was something like a few months ago where he won the title and then lost it back to Hogan. But from this point, I mean, so there's four World War IIIs, and every last one of them challenged. So next year, Hall wins, and the year after that, Nash wins, and they both get to go and challenge for the title. But Giant challenged for the title and didn't get to go on to face Hogan for the title because Hogan didn't like that idea. They've already done it.
That doesn't work for me, brother. Yeah, I know that old gag.
Well, when you got creative control, you got creative control, right?
Now, can I just point out too that this was at the point where the Giant wins, and right at the end of the pay-per-view, Mike Tenay says, and again, and I quote, that it's the greatest pay-per-view he's ever been a part of. Now, Mike Tenay deserves like a $20,000 bonus for being able to say that with a straight face. He said, deadpan with a straight face. Talk about company men. Mike Tenay doesn't get enough love either.
Oh, God. I mean, overall, it wasn't a bad pay-per-view. There were some high spots, obviously, but it's far from their best one. It's just this Battle Royal thing not having a culmination sort of. But, of course, you didn't know that at the time yet. Giant just won, and you were expecting him to challenge Hogan at some point.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's a lot of things you expected from WCW. And I think that was probably the problem, was expecting anything from WCW. They dropped the ball there. And I mean, honestly, though, what are you going to do? Like, the argument can be made. It's like, what are we going to put the strap on this giant dude that like literally has a couple months at the power plant? Like that, he's not, I wouldn't say he was quite ready.
Over Hogan? I mean, say what you want about Hogan, but he usually carries the belt fairly well.
Yeah, and I mean, the marks want to be mad about, all the politicking Hogan did, but, at the end of the day, Hogan definitely politicked, and he definitely did whatever he could to stay on top, but if he wasn't moving tickets and T-shirts, then they wouldn't. Like, I think people sometimes just think that Hogan was this crafty Machiavellian figure that kept himself on top. And there are definitely times that he screwed deserving people and all that stuff. But he also wouldn't have been able to get away with all of that had he not earned it by being like, look, they look at the bottom line, dude. And you put Hogan on a pay-per-view or you put Hogan on a fucking card, tickets are going to sell. Even now, you sold some shit right now and said Hulk Hogan's going to be there. People are going to buy tickets. Yeah. People want to see Hulk Hogan.
Well, he was on Raw, was it, this last week? And he's got a new fucking T-shirt, Hogan's Rules, and fucking the website sold out of them. So it is what it is, man. It's
every time he pops back up, there's always some like black indie wrestler. It's like, no, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to clap back, y'all. I'm gonna have to get some Twitter clout, y'all. I'm sorry, but like, why are we fucking with this dude? And you're like, because you'll never be on his level in terms of earning. That's why.
Yep, exactly. Listen,
but we're never going to sell 30,000 tickets to see Big Swole.
No.
So why don't you sit the fuck down and let this man earn all of your paychecks tonight?
Yep. National Hall have said it a million times on a million different shoot interviews. Hogan's on that card? Fucking sweet. We're going to make bank tonight.
Yeah. Because it's true. Like there's a reason why, like they even say to this day, like Hall and Nash were like, had this opportunity to do the NWO thing with Hogan. And they were even concerned about like, yeah, he's kind of corny and this and that. But at the end of the day, the deciding factor was, doesn't matter, bro. Throw that white and black on him. He's going to sell tickets, dude. Like we're not going to be hurting for cash.
Yeah, exactly. Again, like I appreciate you coming on the show. And reliving some 90s nostalgia. God knows we're both losing hair and getting it in other places we don't want it. So I appreciate that.
No, man. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right, man. Well, take care.
If you want to do it again, dude, let me know for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, listen, when that last show happens, I'm going to have you on, and I'm going to kiss Royce's ass enough that he's going to want to be on too.
Hey, you can get him on. You just got to ask him. He thinks you don't like him.
Oh, no, I tell you, there's a few people I don't like, but Royce ain't one of them.
That's what he said. Like, he was like, he doesn't like me. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure Dark Fox doesn't dislike you because he's generally pretty expressive about who he doesn't like.
Yeah, don't leave it up to
like,
I'm not
Dark Fox is the kind of guy you're going to think he doesn't like you. It's going to be pretty emphatic.
Yeah, there's not going to be much doubt to that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just reach out to him. I'm sure he'd love to come on. I'd love to come on again, man, too. This is a lot of fun.
Sounds good, brother. All right. Thanks. And we'll see you around.
Anybody listening, I've been recently suspended from Twitter, but please check out Nightwave Radio. And then also, since I'm not on Twitter anymore, my Jewish producer, Adam Goldman, great guy. He does all of the tweeting for the show. It's at 18K Goldman on Twitter. If you want to follow him, what I always tell people, he and I are so in sync with each other. It's almost like following me. It's not like following me because I'm legally not on Twitter anymore, but follow Adam Goldman on Twitter if you'd like to get any updates from me. But yeah, man, thanks for having me. And let's definitely do it again soon.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Go check out Nightwave. And thanks again, Mersh boy. We'll catch you around, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Well, that was an abortion of a show. Should the mood take you, check out markoutradio.com and leave a comment. You can also find links there to our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Stitcher channels. You can even leave a voicemail on our Skype. Just click the links and share them.